Take a close look at Noah Lyle's sprinting in the recent Olympic win he got in the 100-meter dash. What is the one thing you notice that makes him one of the best in the world? To the naked eye, most people will say it's genetics and that he just looks relaxed and strong, but the real answer is his stretch shortening cycle. This research study shows the importance of the stretch shortening cycle and the importance of RSI score. Has one of the highest transfers to athletes' sprint and explosiveness performance. So in this video, I'll give you 3 plyometric exercises to develop your stretch shortening cycle that every athlete should be doing. I use these to not only transform my own athleticism, but also the 1,300 athletes that are on the Speed Academy program. You'll get the 3 plyometrics every athlete needs, how many reps and sets to do, and when to use them in your workout to get the most out of each training session. Part 1 will be programming. If your goal is to be a better athlete, then knowing how to program these exercises is going to be crucial to your results. You simply won't improve if these exercises are placed in the wrong part of your workout. So here's an easy to understand programming guide for plyometrics at a general level. For extensive plyometrics, think low impact repetitive movements. Use them at the beginning of your workout to warm up the tendons and build elasticity, or at the end of a workout as a finisher to help the tendons adapt to the heavy lifting and transition to faster movements later on. For reps and sets, they need to be long duration for low to medium intensity. So a total minute count, for example, could be 3 to 5 minutes per day, 3 to 5 days per week, which isn't too bad actually. An example would be jump rope, 3 minutes a day at a low intensity. For intensive plyometrics, think bounds, depth jumps, dunks, or timed sprints. It's important to place these early in each workout, usually right after your warm-up, depending on your specific goal, of course. Then you want short and intense volume to ensure you're getting maximum effort and progression. A good example would be if you're trying to sprint faster, especially in your acceleration, you could do 6 times 20-yard sprints, or if you're trying to improve your jumping ability, you could do depth jumps, 3 sets of 4 right after your warm-up. And everything else in your session will be supplemental to that main goal, which is the main intensive plyometric. But even if you know how to program these exercises, if you don't have the only 3 plyometric exercises that every athlete needs, then you might not improve at all. Part 2, the only 3 plyometrics every athlete needs. This research study shows the importance of horizontal force production while sprinting. It's common to think that when you're sprinting in acceleration, it's purely horizontal force production, and when you're upright, it's purely vertical force production. But even when you're doing upright sprinting, when a stretch shortening cycle is being stressed the greatest, there's actually a ton of horizontal force that you need to be able to produce. So those exercises will help both your vertical force production and horizontal force production. This is something I struggled with early on in my training career. When I was younger, I used to be able to hang clean 225 at 165 pounds body weight. For people who don't know, it's pretty strong for your average athlete. But my 10-yard sprint time was terrible. I could only go 2.2 seconds in the 10-yard dash. And it frustrated me for the longest time. I thought all my strength gains would transfer over. Turns out I was producing a bunch of vertical forces in a hinged focus position. But sadly, that doesn't get you down the track. It was the lack of horizontal force production based exercises in knee dominant positions that was holding me back. Once I fixed that, my time shot down to 1.7 seconds in the 10-yard dash in high school. And to develop this ability, I have my athletes in the Speed Academy do horizontal broad jumps. Here's how to do them. Step 1, you're gonna stand with your feet shoulder width apart with some distance that you can jump forward. Step 2, you're gonna raise your hands into the sky and start to breathe in deep breaths. Step 3, you're gonna drive your arms down and back, which is going to activate your glute and your posterior chain. Then step 4, you want to jump as far as possible. Once you land, you want to grab a shoe or something to mark where you landed. Step 5, you want to repeat for the recommended reps and sets and try to beat that shoe placement. For the progression, I'd start with broad jump singles, then singles with no counter movement where you pause at the bottom for 3 seconds. This means you do no dip before you jump. Then progress to triple broad jumps with pauses and eventually do triples without pauses. You can even mix in single leg variations when you're ready, and this will have a huge transfer to those first 5 to 10 yards. But even if you can produce a high amount of horizontal force, if you can't store and release elastic energy at fast speeds, you'll end up being a muscle dominant athlete who can't compete with elite level elastic dominant athletes, which are pretty much all the top athletes in the world. Max velocity phase is under 0.2 seconds. This means that he's producing multiple times his body weight in a short period of time. This is called reactive strength. This research study shows the importance of reactive strength in athletes. And if you want to develop reactive strength and the ability to store and release elastic energy, this exercise is essential. So here's how to do hurdle hops. Step 1, you're gonna grab either some shoes or some hurdles and separate them 3 to 5 feet apart depending on your height and how high you can jump. For this specific one, we're gonna do about 4 hurdles for 1 set. Step 2, you're gonna stand in front of the first hurdle and then get into a quarter squat position. Step 3, you're gonna jump over the hurdle as high as possible. The goal for when you're landing is to lift your toes up slightly to preload the stretch shortening cycle and then spring off and jump over the next hurdle as high as possible again. Step 4, make sure you're doing each rep where the floor is lava. You wanna jump up fast off the ground, but also high off the ground. For progression, start off with short hurdle hops with pauses. Then you wanna move to continuous hurdle hops. Eventually aim for medium to tall hurdles. For reps and sets, we usually do 2 to 6 sets of 3 to 4 reps for max height and speed. Now that you developed your reactive strength and your elastic ability, the next key for 90% of athletes is maximum speed. Without speed, you'll be limited in almost every aspect of your performance. World-renowned coach from the 1980s, Charlie Francis, developed a concept that's controversial nowadays, but it's clearly worked for his athletes like Ben Johnson. The concept is called speed reserves. As some might say, speed reserves is the difference between top speed and desired race pace. The greater the difference between absolute top speed and actual race pace, the less effort must be exerted to achieve fixed race pace. To further prove this point, this research study shows the importance of maximum velocity and the concept of speed reserves, which translates into overall speed potential. Basically, if you improve your top end speed, your acceleration speed will gradually improve too, improving your overall running speed. So for one of the best exercises to improve maximum velocity, your overall speed, your speed potential, we're going to be doing flying tens. Step 1, you want to measure out about 10 yards. You can do this with around 30 steps. You can literally just do steps 1, 2, 3 above your feet and measure it out like that. Or you can grab some measuring rulers or some sticks to figure out how to measure out 10 yards. Anyone can do it. Step 2, then you want to place a shoe at the beginning of the 10 yards and at the end of the 10 yards. Step 4, start around 10 to 20 yards back and build up your speed. Start off around 70 to 90%, and right before you hit the cone, step 5, you want to sprint as fast as possible between the 2 shoes, so between the 10 yards of maximum speed. For progression, start off with a 10-yard buildup, then 20-yard buildup, and finally, you want to build the actual distance you're sprinting. So start off with 10 yards sprinting to 15 yards sprinting, and eventually 20 to 30 yards of a flying sprint. You want to time every single sprint, by the way, because you do not want to be sprinting under 95% of maximum intensity. And if you really need to improve your acceleration, one of the simplest and most effective ways is to do timed 20-yard sprints from a regular 3-point or 2-point start. Now, these plyometric exercises won't help you improve if you still have too much fat on your body. This is because you won't be able to produce enough power relative to your body weight, which is one of the quickest ways to ruin your speed. So to make sure you never run into this issue again or ever, watch this video right here.